makes you wanna go. Makes you wanna go. Na 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 na. Makes you wanna go.
Hey, 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 hey. Hey, Mickey G, how are you today?
I'm doing
girl?
well, Golden. I'm doing well, Golden Bronze. Listen, I was jamming to the intro. I love it.
I know that's right. Makes you
Oh.
want to go. It's good to see you today.
Same. It's good to see you too.
Y'all have to forgive me. I have this vision where I need glasses to read, but not to see. So they're off and on. So excuse me.
And I'm always adjusting mine.
But we want to welcome Right. We want to welcome everybody to Gab with Golden Bronze. We thank you very much for taking 45 minutes to an hour to spend with us today. We know that there were many other things that you could do, and we're so glad that you decided to spend them with us. This is a safe space where everybody's opinion is heard and respected, and we look forward to engaging in a lot of fun things today.
Yes, indeed. Well, let me tell you, you can hear our show on Village Global Network on Mondays every other week at 10 a.m., powered by Zeno FM with additional monitoring through online radio box on the following stations: Culture Shock Radio, Canada; Radio Perseo, Mexico; Rockbox FM, USA; and Walk Through Music, Guadalupe. You can also view our shows on YouTube Saturdays. And we have exciting news. Lean in. We will soon appear on BGN TV, the station's Woman to Woman Network, Louis Wood, Roku TV, Fire TV, Comcast, DuPont Network, Xfinity, LG Smart TV, Samsung Smart TV, and Spectrum. We look forward to seeing you there, so we'll keep you posted. Our topics for this show today are: what would you tell your younger self? And what does love look like for you now? What do you say, Golden Bronze? What would you have told your younger self?
Girl, you got enough time.
I have as much time as you do.
First of all, I would have told myself that this is my own personal opinion. I took a year off after high school before I decided to go to school, to college. And it's really funny. I thought that it's kind of funny. I thought that I just wanted to enter the workforce. I was a little tired of school. So I took a job. My brother had this girlfriend that worked at the Holiday Inn Hotel. And I took a job for the summer. I worked 1 hour. She was like supervisor of maid services, and the cart weighed more than I did. So I was like pushing the cart down the hall, and I was intimidated by, they would have someone come behind you and do what they call the swipe test, swiping the woodwork and this and that to make sure that you got it clean. And, my grandmother did that. Of course, she was born in 1906, but that's kind of work. That's the kind of work that they did back in those days. So I think after the first room, I'm like, this is for the birds. It's not for me. That's for sure. So I sat down and watched All My Children, One Life to Live, and all these funny, they weren't funny, but what do they call them? Soap operas. Okay.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I went home and told the man that I had the nerve to tell him I wasn't coming back, but I wanted my paycheck. He's like, what paycheck? You work 1 hour. And I knew that that wasn't for me. So I would have told my younger self to take my parents' advice and go on and further my education, because I wasted 1 whole year doing odd jobs. I think the next one after that was I was in California living with my grandmother. And I took a job, which this was kind of fun, in retail at J.C. Penney, in the like junior department, because that's the size that I was wearing at the time. And I got to some what catalog modeling. There's a word for it, and modeling is not my expertise. So I don't know what it's called, but picture modeling or whatever. It wasn't runway modeling, but they just
Right.
took our pictures for their catalog and newspaper ads and things. So I got to do that, and that was fun. And then I spent maybe 6 months in an accounting department at Ford Motor Company in Palo Alto, California. That was back when people was smoking in the offices, and they could just smoke right there at the desk, and I would choke on the smoke. And so I went back to Kansas where my parents were living, and I said, I want to go to school. I mean, that experience did lead me to know that that's not what I wanted to do, kind of work, you know. And I was like right out of high school, so I had no experience doing anything. And some people land those good jobs right out of high school, but that wasn't my journey. And so I would have told myself not to have wasted that 1 year uh, fumbling around. And maybe that was God's intention for me to do, to know what it was that I needed to do. But I really fumbled around from one odd job to the other right out of high school. So I would have told myself not to do that. And the other thing probably is that I would, like, I thought I was in love at 17 years old. I probably would have told myself to slow it down there too, and just enjoy being a teenager, you know, and taking care of the basics that I needed to learn in life. I didn't, you know, end up marrying that person. I think it was more, you learn the difference in love and infatuation
Right.
as a teenager. And so I think that I would have not have been trying to have any kind of relationship at 17, just be a teenager and start off real slow, which I did slow my roll and kept it in slow motion for many years after that. So those two things, and we'll come back to me, and let me ask you, let's start with as 17, 18, where I started, okay, and work our way up. What would you have told yourself differently at 17 years, 18, or 19 years old?
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to tell you all that when we come right back. Okay, so as I was saying, well, and it really kind of goes back beyond, because it's a foundational thing. I would have told myself that I was enough. I would have told myself not to settle. I would have looked inside of myself to see what I was made of and see what my gifts were. So I think that I would have encouraged myself to know that I have everything that I need, that I was born with. And so just look inside and find it. And knowing that I was complete, and I didn't have to look for validation from people, from boyfriends, from anyone, because I was valid because I was born. And so it's really pretty simple for me, because it leads to a whole lot of things in life. If you know that you're enough and you look for the gifts inside, then you can make it a little bit better. You know,
Yeah,
hindsight is 2020 for real,
yeah.
because of what we're saying right now. Had we known, and even on the domestic violence front,
Hmm.
I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know the signs. I didn't know what was happening. So being aware of the world around me and being aware of myself would have been things I would have told myself at that stage of life. Just never settling. And in this iteration of my life, I've looked inside and found the giftings and talents that I have, and I'm using them now. And, the Bible says your gift will make room for you. And so mine is more introspective and not necessarily situational, but that's what I would have told my younger self.
And you know, Mickey, speaking of telling yourself that you're enough comes with age and wisdom, because I find myself telling my grandchildren that right now, and my daughters, you're enough. Don't try to live up to somebody else's expectation. Live up to your own. But you have to know what your value is in life for yourself to know that you're enough. And that's very, very interesting that you would say that. That came from me 20 to maybe I don't know when that introspection came for you, but that came for me in my 20s, the introspection. And it came from experiences of domestic violence. My relationships were just that. And the introspection led me to wonder, why is it that I attract men that want to control me, that are jealous, dominating, overbearing, and get angry when you're not submissive to that? And what I would hear is, you're supposed to be submissive, but not to control, not to abuse, not to degradation, and all those things. And I learned that much later in life, past 19, in my early 20s, that I was enough. But it took those situational things for me to encounter, I believe, before I gained that introspection. But you're a very wise person anyway, so you probably learned that a lot sooner in life than I did. Um,
Well, well, you know, Golden Bronze is a little different in the sense that I was a young mom,
mhm.
and I had my first child when I was 20, and I had my fourth child when I was 25.
Yeah.
And so I was in survival mode for a lot of the time. And once things settled down, I was able to look at my life. I think that I'm always growing. You know, I learned lessons from that. Learned lessons from that marriage, etc. And when you evaluate what you went through, then you say, how could I have done that better?
Mhm.
What could I do going forward? Not to make those same errors in judgment, or what should I look for now? And so those are some things that I learned, I say, in my 30s. And then as life went on and I hit another bump, then I learned from that also, you know. And so
Yeah.
that's what life is. I often say that in the mind or in life experiences, you have to have wrinkles on the brain for experiences to stay there, because we don't go through things for ourselves. We go through them for the next person. That's the each one teach one. And
Right.
so, as we're sharing our experiences of growing up and learning, we're teaching someone else who's coming behind us trying to figure it out. So, it's been a journey. And one of my sons said, you're not grown until you're gone, because you should always be growing. And so that's where my thought process is. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'll be growing until I leave this world.
And I always say your son is right, because my theory is we can always learn.
Right.
You're saying grow is probably the same thing, but you never stop learning to your expiration date. As long as you're standing 2 feet upright, you are going to learn through life. And Mickey, you're probably exactly right, because I didn't become a mom and married until I was closer to 30, right? And so it was experiences that I was going through then, the domination, the control, the lying, the intimidating and degradation. Then I thought I am better than this, and but I was further on into life getting married than you were. So you learned that experience. You learned it way before I did, by that's probably going through some of the same experiences. You just went through them earlier
Right.
in life. And so you're absolutely right about that. And if I can, I would like to say that that's one of the things that we share with people with Golden Swan Cadre. We talk about the different types of domestic violence / abuse, that it's not all physical, it's emotional, psychological, financial, physical as well. And there are 7 different aspects of it. And part of what we do ladies and gentlemen, is we do webinars and seminars and events where we educate the people, everybody, about the triggers, about the red flags, about what domestic violence and abuse is. Oftentimes, we don't know that we are the abuser. Oftentimes, we don't know that we are the victim. And a lot of victims go through years and years, like we did, before we ever realized, hey, this is not normal, what we're going through. Everybody is not treating their spouse this way. This is abnormal behavior. We deserve better. The only person happy is the abuser because he's in control. And we teach you guys those life lessons and encourage you to learn the red flags. And we'll talk about more about that when we come right back.
I agree with that. And before we go to our next subject, I want to also say a lot of times people say, well, why didn't you leave? You should have left. We don't know what we don't know until we know it, and so it's very unfair for someone to say, well, I would have left, I would have gone, I would have, you never know what you're going to do. And then you don't even understand what domestic violence is. So sometimes it's a journey, it's not a sprint. As far as the domestic violence journey is concerned. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Last years, people don't understand. There's a lot of factors involved. You love this person that you fell in love with. Right. They always come back and say, I promise this was my case. I'll never do it again until the next time. Okay. They don't say the next time. I'm saying they always say, I love you more than life itself. I'll never do that again. And then it happens again. And because you love that person, you want to trust and believe that that person is sincere, because you should never marry anybody that you can't trust and believe in. So you're whether it's a man or a woman, usually it's because you have some heartstrings attached to that person. Even though they're abusive, you want to believe that they're sincere. Then you have children. I didn't want my children to be a statistic. I wanted to believe that this person really meant what he said and hold this family together. I didn't want to be the one that breaks it apart, but didn't realize that the person doing the abuse was already working at breaking it apart. But, we're young. We don't realize that it's not our fault. Sometimes we take the guilt. If I leave, then I'm causing my children to not be around their father. I found out later that their father wasn't always the nicest to them either. I didn't know that till after the fact. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I probably would have been out there, in a flash had I known that. But I can say for myself, whether it was right or whether it was wrong, because we live and we learn by our mistakes, is that I was trying to hold a family together. My parents were married from day one to the day my daddy died. And that was the example that I was trying to set for my children. Right. Eventually, I had to just throw in the towel. It takes two people to make it work and two people to want the same thing. But people don't understand that. I heard it too. You should have just left. Well, I would never let anybody treat me like that. Well, why did you do this? And why did you do that?
You cannot speak from the bleachers. You have to be in the game to understand. And people who stay in abusive situations for the sake of their children, not to break a marriage apart, your children are watching. Your children are watching this person abuse you and picking up that maybe this is okay. Your sons and your daughters. And so it's not okay. And so if you can find a wherewithal and find help, find some resource, someone you trust to talk to help you, that's the beginning of it, because when you're drowning in something like that and you're trusting that person, especially if you're in a marriage, you don't want to destroy your marriage. You don't want to end your marriage and have a divorce. So you do stay a lot of times and hoping that it will get better.
Exactly.
And oftentimes it does not get any better.
Exactly, Mickey.
In fact, a lot of times it escalates and gets worse. And the last thing you want to do is to die.
Right.
So just figure out the signs, educate yourself. We'll be doing some educating as well on our platforms to educate you as to what domestic violence is and it isn't. It isn't just someone punching you. They can punch you emotionally. They can punch
Right.
you mentally. They can punch you
Right.
financially. There's so many ways that you can be
Exactly.
hit besides being slapped. So we want to make sure that you have that education. Somehow we got into this, but this is absolutely meaningful information
It
that we need to give, and some of us who, well, we're domestic violence survivors and now thrivers.
Yes.
We can look back on it and know what the signs were, and then that way we can help the next person. So
Pay
hopefully
it
this
forward.
information helps you. Pay it forward, absolutely. Our
Mhm.
younger selves, now we know, you know. So
Yep.
yeah, so I think it's all just a matter of growth over time. So in a
Right.
moment, we're going to tackle another topic. Are you almost ready, Golden Bronze?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do it as
Okay.
soon as we come right.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain it though. Let me explain it. What we're gonna talk about. We're
Okay.
gonna ask, what does love look like for ourselves now, going forward at this stage of life, knowing what we went through then, and all the trials that we went through in relationships from the time we were 17. What you were saying about
Yes.
what would we tell our younger selves?
Yes.
From about that age to what it looks like as a mature woman who has gone through some things and overcome some things and turned into a thriver and not just a survivor of domestic violence or survivor of life. So do you want to just give us a little tidbit before we go? We have a couple of minutes. Do you want
Well,
to
we'll
wait?
say that we went from abuse victim to survivor to thriver and beautiful golden swans. And
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
we'll be right back.
Okay. As we were saying, yes, now we're swans. So tell me, Golden Bronze, what does love look like for you now after all that you've experienced and you're at this iteration of your life?
Okay, I'll tell you, Mickey G, that I'll start off by saying sometimes I have sat and wondered, Lord, why me? Why did I have to go through being thrown in trash cans, uh, having a husband to commit infidelity, the wife that had to work the two jobs, the person that was verbally abusive? I didn't see that at home. You didn't see that at home. Why me, Lord? And then the only thing that I can get from that is because there were lessons that you had to learn to get you to where you are today. I wrote that in the book of life for you because your purpose is you're in the season right now to fulfill it. And what I have learned from that is I used to be in my 20s, very, very passive when it came to men. I would go along to get along. Not necessarily was it everything that I wanted to do, but my thing was I wanted to please him
Right.
at the sake of losing myself. So let's say I lost myself in the marriage. And my older self would tell my younger self not to do that. To have your boundaries always at 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.
Right.
Always have your boundaries. Love people, but love yourself more than you love that person. And I say that because if you love yourself, you will know when not to allow yourself to fall in certain circumstances and not be afraid. I was afraid to speak up. The thing I didn't want to do was make somebody else mad.
Right.
Those are things I had to overcome. Not worrying about, you can say all these things to me, do these things to me to hurt me, to disappoint me, to make me mad. But why did I think that I wasn't supposed to do that to you? That would be wrong. So it was not reciprocal,
Right.
the relationship. It was one sided. And I would tell myself now what you said earlier, I'm enough. I am enough. I am enough to not have to take abuse at 20, 30. And I learned that lesson at 42. That's when I left. Okay. That's when I ended it. So I
Right.
went through 20 years 20 years of verbal, emotional, he's physical, financial, because when we did split up, I'm at work working and he went to the ATM and emptied it out. Okay.
Wow.
And something, the Holy Spirit was speaking to me and I ignored it. I learned to never ignore that little quiet, still voice. That's the other thing. My older self would tell my younger self to pay attention to your intuition, because that intuition is God speaking to you.
Right.
Kept telling me to lead, to go to the bank, to go to the bank. And I didn't do that. And then when I did get off of work and went to the ATM, it sucked up my card. And we're talking like over 10 grand. I wasn't trying to take it all then. I was just getting some money, right? But the account was emptied out. So I would tell myself that to pay attention to your own inner self.
Right.
That is God speaking to you. When that self says, this is not normal, pay attention to the behaviors, pay attention to the sign. Don't sweep that under the rug. Pay attention to it. That's God trying to lead you. That's what I would tell my younger self. And then if I had done that, some of those things maybe I would not have experienced, because it was self keeping me there and my own immature reasons, because I do believe God was trying to tell me, this is not what I want from my child. You are a child of God. You are my daughter.
Right.
That person is a street person. That's unevenly yoked, and this is not what I want for you. But I didn't listen to that inner voice. So that's the other thing. I would pay attention to my own intuition, the own feelings that I get when it don't feel right. It's not right. When something is going on in your life and it doesn't feel right, trust me, it is not right. Pay attention to it. I tell myself that as well.
Amen.
Yeah, it's deep, but it's lessons that I've learned, Mickey G. And I would tell myself not to always give in to the will of someone else, because it's not always the will of God.
Right.
You know, to do some things that I think is important to me for me to be whole.
Right.
I completely lost myself, okay, and tried to just be something somebody else wanted me to be. And the only person happy was the other somebody.
Right.
So
that part.
Yeah.
That part.
That's
Well, I'm listening to you and I'm relating in so many ways. You and I, we grew up in the church, and I grew up in Pentecostal church, and I was very sheltered growing up. It was, you dated within the church, you did everything within the church. There were things you weren't supposed to do, and so not having context with the rest of the world made me a sheep in a wolf's world. And so they found me, the wolves found me, and I just didn't know any better as to what to do in these situations. So it caused me not to even know how to search inside myself and know that I was enough, because my world was painted this small when the whole world was this big. And that's kind of where I got tripped up as a young woman. And so at some point, I learned love over time, especially love for myself, but it took some time to do that. And then when we return, we're going to talk more about what does love look like for us at this stage, after we've gone through all this learning and being sheltered and growing up in certain spaces. What does love look like for us now as mature women? Okay, so what does love look like for us at this stage of life? Would you like to start, or would you like me to?
I will start off.
Okay.
So, Mickey G, I tell you reluctantly, but it's my truth. I had a loving mother, but she emasculated my father a lot. And I felt so sorry for him. And as parents, we need to be careful how we treat our spouses and what we say to them and how we say it to them in the presence of the children and other people. And so because of she has the most dominant personality, I think, out of anybody in our family. And I went through life thinking that I couldn't speak my voice.
Right.
Well, let's say I didn't want to be emasculating. Okay. I wanted to be
Right.
the opposite. I'm stumbling on how to say this because I knew how I felt when I looked at my dad or saw his reaction to whatever was going on. So now love for me looks like a relationship where two people highly respect the other person's feelings, and you're cautious about how you carry yourself in the presence of your spouse and other people when you're around other people. If your spouse or significant other, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, upsets you or says something that you don't like, that's not the time to express your displeasure. Hold that within. And then when you get with that person in the car on the way home or whatever, you would say to that person, I really had my feelings hurt when you did X, Y, or Z. Sometimes maybe they didn't even realize
Right.
that they stepped on an eggshell. So I would say, as now, I'm more compassionate about the perspective of the man in whatever the given situation is. I'm more open to listening before reacting. Probably when I was younger, I reacted to whatever the situation was that occurred. Whereas now I'm so much more calm. I hold a lot within. I don't immediately respond. I let things marinate and resonate, and I pray about it before I decide if I want to address it. And if I do, and this is not just with my significant other, this is with other people in the Golden Swan cadre, friends, everybody. I let things marinate and resonate, and I pray on them. And sometimes I don't even address them. And then if I think it's significant enough, I have prayed on it, thought about it, and I know how to go back in a calm, rational manner and address whatever it is. So that pertains to a relationship as well. Open communication, honesty. I dealt with so many dishonest men that it is important to me in my older years to find out if they have that integrity of honesty early on. I'm not even going to waste my time. If you're one of those that lie to me all the time, that make up stuff to cover for yourself, well, you can just kick rocks with bare feet and keep it rolling, because I'm not even going to invest my time in anybody like that. When I was younger, I did. When I was younger, I had blinders on. I ignored a lot of things, and maybe I was more physical. I looked at the outer aspect of what the man looked like more than I looked in the inside of what he looked like. So my older self looks at the heart and the mind more than I do the body, right? More than I do what the exterior looks like. And I think a lot of men say that too, that they don't want to get caught up with just the looks of a woman. They look for what else inside she has to offer that relationship. So I'll pause there and let you elaborate on it. But those are two significant things that my older self would tell my younger self, and I probably would have saved myself some heartache and pain.
I 100% agree with you in the sense that your love, the way you love and the way you learn to love changes over time. I know in the beginning, when you're in your childbearing years, we're looking at the physical, and that's just natural, that we would look at the physical and, is he this and he's that, and we can have babies and we're attracted and all those things. Okay, I get that.
Mhm.
As you grow and your needs change in your life, then you're looking for something more. The standard that I
Right.
was given was very, very in the beginning. You know, he just had to be someone who was in the church and saved. That was the bar, but not anything else. Educationally, employment wise, character, things like those things. That that wasn't shared with me. Though I watched my parents be married, like your parents, till my mother passed away, and so I watched them stay together in a marriage. So I married. I was young. I've seen violence in another generation in my family between spouses, and I thought that's the way to go. And so at some point
Mhm.
early in my marriage, I would I remember one occasion where I hit him, and that wasn't the way to go. But being emotionally immature and following an example that you thought that's the way you're supposed to handle things, that's the way I tried to handle things at that point. But I'm going to elaborate a little bit more in just a few moments. We're going to step away for a minute and we'll be right back. Okay, so as I was saying, I thought that that was the way to do it. And I was at that time probably standing 5'7", 5'8". I'm 5'9" now. But my husband then was 6'4". And I thought I was supposed to hit him. No, no, no. No, no, no. You don't do that. And he was defending himself and all those things. But as I understood, as I grew up, now mind you, I was married when I was 20. Emotional maturity wasn't there, although I was a very mature person. I was a very responsible person
Right.
because I'm a firstborn and I was a responsible person. But that's not the way to handle it. Hitting your husband or hitting your wife. You're not supposed to lay hands. And
Right.
so as I grew older and after the divorce and raising the children mostly alone, I had to develop another standard of what I
Mhm.
wanted in a spouse or a partner. My needs were different. My children were older, etc. And so I started to gather tools as to what love is and what love isn't, what to
Mhm.
look for and what not to look for. And so that comes with life experience very often. And it did for me
Right.
all the way through my adult life, you know. And so now I see that the person in my life, we have to complement each other. You know, they may have strengths that I don't have, and I have strength that he doesn't have. And there's a mutual respect there that takes you to where you need to go and you communicate with each other. And so love for me now is not just the external, although you want them to be kind of attractive to you.
Yes.
you know, you do have standards, but
Yeah.
that but at this stage of life, you
Yeah.
know, people are getting grayer, they're getting pudgy, all those things are happening to people as we get older. And so we must look on the inside and see what a person is working with in there. And I think that our standards are deeper, they're more thoughtful, they're more planned out how we interact with someone. And love is not just about physical. It's not about sexual things.
I know,
If
and we seem to share some commonalities with what we would tell our younger selves
Right,
because I said also about the respect and the honesty. But another thing, Mickey G, I just wanted to elaborate is when I look for the sensitivity and compassion in a man. And when someone is that way with me, they gain those stars. Okay. Then you don't have to be hard and rough and you know cuss and talk crazy to me. That's a turn off for me.
right,
I have in the last couple of years dated a man or two that came across that way, and I ended it just as quickly because I just that's not attractive to me. I look
right,
on the inside, like you were talking about. I look for that integrity, that compassion, that
right,
understanding, and they have to have a relationship with God. I just wanted to add that in. Um, that has to be for me. And I know we both were raised in church. They don't have to be a holy roller or
right,
you know everyday in church person, but they have to
right,
have that relationship with God because
Right.
I feel like if a man has a relationship with God, he already knows how to treat his woman. We
Right.
don't have to teach him how to do it. He
Right.
knows how to do it. And
Right.
I don't want anybody that I need to teach how to be a man. And a man is more than just being born one. You're born a
Right.
male, okay?
Yeah.
But your woman should not have to teach you how to be a man to her.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and that's something my father used to tell me because he said I was unevenly yoked. Wasn't for the marriage, went through with the wedding, but said in the get-go, you know how somebody else can always see what we can't see?
Right.
Not
Right.
evenly yoked. And I did what I wanted to do anyway, right? So I just wanted to add that. And also, you touched on finances. So I want to just elaborate on that. This is something that you mentioned, and I concur 100%. That person has to be able now to come to the table with something. I was always in a situation that was not the way that it was meant to be, where I had to, if I couldn't be sick. Thank God I never had cancer back then or anything like that, because my salary was one required of and needed.
Right.
And that didn't matter to me then. For some reason, when I was younger, um, how much money a person made was not the number
Right.
one thing on my list, right? But I
Right.
got caught up in the things that they, but not necessarily did they practice. So they told me this is how I am, but they showed me that they were something different after we were married. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. Right.
uh,
Right.
I don't want to be the sole caretaker anymore, the sole financial burden. That burden was on my shoulder for 30 years. I don't want to be that, but we'll go into that when we come. Okay, thank you for
Okay.
reaching back. Let me finish my statement. I just wanted to say that when I was in my 20s, a person's income or job status didn't matter to me. Their income doesn't matter so much as they are able to carry on the financial responsibility and not leave that burden just to me. I've always been one that would help, but I don't want to be one that has to be the only one to do it.
Right.
Okay.
I agree with you on that one. Well, I will tell you, I'm so glad we had this conversation today. We all have different
Mhm.
points of view, and every point of view is respected. As Golden Bronze stated earlier, this is a safe zone. And Golden Bronze is going to tell you about who we sponsor, Golden Swan Cadre.
Yes, ma'am. We sponsor Golden Swan Cadre. I would like to say that I am the CEO and founder of Golden Swan Cadre, and Mickey G is a faithful member of the organization and also the podcast, as you know, of Golden Gap for Golden Bronze. Golden Swan Cadre is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that advocates against domestic violence. Not only do we advocate against domestic violence towards women, we advocate for women's health issues, including mental health, self-care, and mindfulness, which is inclusive of a lot of different things to make us a whole, healthy individual. You can sponsor Golden Swan Cadre by going to our social media pages, the official _ Golden Swan Cadre at Instagram, and on Facebook as Golden Swan Cadre. You can even hit me up on Facebook, Golden Bronze, and also Mickey G, Mickey's Life to the Fullest, I believe is her handle on Instagram. You can donate via our website, www.goldenswancadre.com, or you can send a dollar to whatever to $ the Golden Swan Cadre, excuse me, I think it's just $ Golden Swan Cadre on Chime and Cash App. The handles are the same. We'll take $1 because every dollar adds up to 100, and we'll take 100 and up, whatever you feel your heart deserves to give us. Our monies go towards helping victims of domestic abuse once they leave the domestic abuse centers. We collaborate with some centers that will refer people to us, and we take it from there. We mentor them, we peer-to-peer with them, and we help them furnish their apartments or homes once they start their single family journey. And we would appreciate anything that you find in your heart to offer to donate to Golden Swan Cadre. We are also sponsored by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. Any comments, Mickey G, before we wrap it up?
No. Only thing I can tell you is that make sure you hear us on Village Global Network on Mondays every other week at 10 a.m., powered by Zeno FM, with additional monitoring through online radio box on the following stations: Culture Shock Radio, Canada, Radio Forcia, Mexico, Rockbox FM, USA, and Wapta Music, Guadalupe.
And not
Thank you
only
for joining
that, tell them where else they can find us on Village Global Network
Village
TV
Global
coming
Network.
soon.
Yes. So we have this exciting news. We're going to be on VGN TV. The stations are Woman to Woman Network, Lou We Wood, Roku TV, Fire TV, Comcast, DuPont Network, Xfinity, LG Smart TV, Samsung Smart TV, and Spectrum. That's exciting. I can hardly wait.
It sure is. So look for us online or on the radio, the VGN app, or YouTube. Follow us. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. And we thank you for tuning in. Come back and see us again.